The worst thing success can steal from you is not your time. My name is Harold, and I am 83 years old. I spent most of my life chasing a version of making it that looked impressive from the outside, and I only understood what it really cost me after the one phone call I never returned. When I was young, I told myself I was doing it for my family. I said that so often I started believing it without checking whether it was still true. In those years, work did not feel like a choice. It felt like a responsibility, like a storm you had to keep walking through because stopping meant you might lose everything. I was the kind of man who measured himself in numbers, sales figures, promotions, the size of the house, the title on the business card. And every time I reached the next rung, there was a brief moment of relief and then a quiet panic that I needed to keep going. At the beginning, it was almost innocent. I had a small apartment, a new marriage, and a baby who wouldn't sleep unless someone held him. I remember rocking that child in the dark, half asleep and thinking, I can't fail. I can't be the man who can't provide. So when I got offered longer hours and more travel, I took it. I told my wife, it's temporary. She nodded the way people nod when they're trying to be brave for you. I didn't see the look behind her eyes because I was already thinking about the next meeting. Then success started arriving in little ways. People returned my calls faster. They laughed at my jokes more. I was invited into rooms I used to only hear about. I wore better suits. I learned how to talk without saying much. And I learned something else too, something no one tells you directly. When you become valuable to strangers, you begin to neglect the people who loved you when you were ordinary. I didn't wake up one day and decide to become distant. It happened in small transactions. I missed dinner because I was closing something. I missed a school play because the client flew in from out of town. I promised I'd make it up on the weekend, then brought my briefcase home and sat at the kitchen table with papers while my son played on the floor by my feet. I was there. I was always there, but I wasn't with them. My wife used to tell me about her day, and I would answer while looking at my watch, not because I didn't care, but because my mind had been trained to scan for urgency like a machine. If you asked me then, I would have said, of course I love my family. I would have meant it. But love that is always postponed becomes something else. It becomes a promise that never cashes. There was a man I worked with named Daniel. He wasn't my best friend, but we had started together, and we rose up around the same time. He was sharp, reliable, and he didn't talk much about his private life. One night, after a late meeting, we were walking to the parking lot, and he mentioned his daughter had been in the hospital that week. He said it casually, like it was a detail, not like it was his heart on the floor. I remember saying, "Is she okay?" He nodded and said, "She will be." Then he added, "She asked for me, and I wasn't there at first." I still remember the way he looked when he said that, not angry, not dramatic, just tired in a way that made me uncomfortable. I said something useless, something like, "That's hard." And then I started talking about work again because I didn't know how to sit with the truth he was holding. A few months later, Daniel left the company. He didn't retire. He didn't get fired. He simply resigned. People said he'd lost his ambition, that he'd gone soft. I remember feeling almost annoyed, like he was breaking some unspoken agreement we'd all made with each other to keep climbing no matter what. I even told myself I would never do that. I would never step away. I would finish what I started. Years went by. My children grew up. I was present for the big photographs, the graduations, the holidays, when I could manage it. I made speeches at birthdays when I remembered. I bought gifts that were too expensive because gifts were easier than time. And in the quiet moments, I didn't notice how my home became a place where everyone learned not to expect much of me. Then one evening, when I was in my late 60s, the phone rang while I was still at the office. I was looking at a set of numbers that didn't quite match, and I was irritated because I could feel my patience thinning with age, but I didn't want to admit it. The phone buzzed again. Daniel's name was on the screen. I hadn't spoken to him in years. I stared at it, surprised. My first thought was, what does he want? My second thought was, I'll call him back after I finish this. So I let it ring. I went back to the numbers. I told myself it was important. A little later, there was a message. His voice sounded weaker than I remembered, but still calm. He said my name, asked how I'd been, and then he said something that didn't seem to belong in a voicemail between two men who used to talk only about work. He said, I was thinking about that night in the parking lot. I wish I'd been braver about what I was feeling. I think I spent too much time trying to be respected. I wanted to be remembered for being strong, but I didn't want to call without saying something true. If you have a minute, call me. That was all, and I didn't call him that night. It wasn't cruelty, it wasn't hatred, it was habit. I told myself I'd do it tomorrow, when I wasn't tired, when I had more time, when I could be more present. Tomorrow, 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 that is the word that builds a life you never meant to live. The next day, my schedule filled itself the way it always did. I had meetings, a lunch, an unexpected problem that had to be handled. In the afternoon, I saw the voicemail again and felt a small pinch of guilt. But I pushed it aside the way I had learned to push aside so many things. I told myself I'd call after dinner. After dinner, I sat in my chair and fell asleep without meaning to. When I woke up, it was late, and I thought, it's too late to call. 2 days later, I heard Daniel had died. A mutual acquaintance told me he'd been ill for a while, that he'd kept it private, that he'd been putting his affairs in order, that he'd been calling a few people one by one, not to talk business, not to ask for favors, just to say something true before he ran out of time. I sat in my car for a long time after I heard that. The world didn't look any different. The buildings were still there, the road was still there, but something in me finally understood the kind of theft that success can be. It doesn't always take your family away from you in some dramatic moment. It teaches you to treat what matters most as flexible. It trains you to believe that people will always be there when you're ready. It rewards you for being unavailable. And one day, you discover you have become very impressive to strangers and quietly unfamiliar to your own life. When my son was grown, he came over one afternoon. We were both older men by then, sitting at my kitchen table. He asked me something about my health, about the doctor's visits, the small practical things. And then, without anger, he said, "Dad, do you ever wish you had been around more?" The question landed softly, but it hit me hard. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say, "I did it for you." I wanted to point to the roof over our heads, the college tuition, the safety, but there was something honest in his face. And I knew if I answered like that, it would be another missed moment. So I told him the truth. I said, "Yes, I do." He didn't argue. He didn't punish me. He just nodded, like he had known it already. and like he didn't need a performance from me. What he needed even then was presence, not proof. That night, I listened to Daniel's voicemail again. I had saved it without realizing it. Hearing it, I understood something that took me most of my life to learn. The things you call important are often just loud, and the things you call later are often the real life you're trading away. If you're listening to me and you're still in the years where you believe you have plenty of time, I'm not here to frighten you, and I'm not here to tell you to throw your life away. Work can be honorable. Success can be meaningful. But pay attention to what it asks you to sacrifice without asking your permission. Call the person you keep postponing, not when you've finished everything, because you never will. Not when you feel ready, because that day is a moving target. Call them while your life is still happening, not after it has already happened. I am 83 now, and I have learned that the most expensive thing I ever bought was the illusion that I could always make it up later. If you can learn that sooner than I did, you won't just be successful. You'll still be able to recognize the people in your own home, and you'll still be there when the phone rings. It is your attention, so slowly you do not notice what it stops you from seeing.